beautiful people. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Creative Habits Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. She's considered family, a friend, and an overall beautiful person. Please welcome to the show, Keita. Keita is affectionately known as Lady. She is a native of Southeast Washington, D.C., and was educated through D.C. public school system, also graduating high school at the age of 16. During her senior year, she was an organized honor student, three-sport athlete, and held part-time jobs in the sport industry. After working in professional sports and doing multiple sports statistics, she went on to study sports management at Barry University in Miami Shores, Florida. Again, please welcome to the show, Keita.
Hey everyone, how are you? Hi, Hamdi.
Hi. So you are like super talented, super smart. I know about you, of you, but we've never really had a formal conversation as to your life story. So I'm so excited for you to be on the show to share that with us today. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do?
Sure. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I lived in DC until I was 16. I played sports. I did a lot of community, like extracurricular activities just to stay busy, stay off the streets. And then I went to college and majored in sport management. And I found I found Miami to be beautiful. I stayed in Miami for about 5 years. And then during my senior year, I got an internship in events, planning conferences. So on and off, I did conferences since 2012. And along the way, I took a break and went to the Navy. I didn't enlist, but I spent years on deployments and planning events for the Navy. And then I came back and I planned events for the Air Force. And then I came back to DC and I just started planning more events for the collective in my community and started getting involved in the community and saying, hey, like, I like the pop-up shops and like how they're going. So like now that's like my interest, like doing smaller community events and trying to expand them and offering the community self-care through my self-care calendars and products for that.
That's beautiful. Thanks so much for that. So how does one graduate at the age of 16? Did you start school early or what happened?
No, so like DC public schools, like they, in my opinion, they weren't as challenging, but they were challenging in the sense of like it took a lot of discipline and stuff like that. So like I would be really disciplined, but like I would like be one of those kids who like finish work fast and then the teacher have to find me something to do, like draw my paper or something like that. And so like after my junior year in high school, because I took like AP classes and I did summer school, my summer job was actually gave us like a credit. Like, DC has a summer youth program, employment program, and they gave us a high school credit to go along with our job. And then in my junior year, I had a half a day and I was working half day and I was just like talking to my coach and I was like, I'm coming back next year to play sports. He was like, no. He was like, you're not. He was like, you're leaving. You're going to college. You have, because I already had like scholarships academically, not so athletically. And so I was like, I don't want to lose that opportunity if they're asking for me in my junior year and I'm ready to graduate. Like, let me just go. And it was scary because I went from DC to Florida at 16, but at the same time, I was like, this is an opportunity that I didn't want to miss. So yep, I just took some some AP classes and some summer classes as well.
Yeah. So I hear you speaking and you're like not, talking about it as if, you're not braggadocious about it, because I'm like, you're downplaying the fact that you graduated at 16, but that's really awesome. How did your mom react to that? Like you finishing early, was she comfortable with you going to college so early?
No, my mom, thank you for naming that, because that's what a little lady is all about. Like I downplay a lot of my like accomplishments over the years and I'm trying to get better at that. So thank you for naming that. But my mom, like, she did not want me to skip because like teachers were trying to skip me like since elementary school. They were like, no, she needs to go to the next grade. My mom was like, no, I want to keep her with her friends. I want to keep her humble. And because I was like a, smart alecky, like I'm like, mom, like I'm getting good school. I could do stuff, bad stuff outside of school sometimes because I'm getting good grades. But my mom would just be like, no, I want her to stay humble, stay with her classmates, and, not skip to the older grades where she may not like it so much. So I did wait until my senior year to be like, okay, or my junior year to be like, all right, I'm not having a senior year. Let's go.
Yeah. It's quite important because I know your mom did that out of love and was protecting you. I have about 4 people in my family that were skipped up like you. So my father graduated at the age of 15 and
Wow.
he got accepted to Howard University, but his parents were like, no, they held him back for a year. The
Mm.
same happened with a few of my cousins, same situation. But it's like, the world can teach you, if you're not sheltered or protected or like, guided in a certain way. So I can totally understand how, your mom kind of was protecting you and like, making sure that you were actually fully prepared for that. But that's really awesome. So what was your experience like moving at such a young age and just being completely independent?
That I think was one of the biggest life lessons for me because like I am like a Cancer. I'm an introvert kind of like I kind of had the same friends from elementary school to like high school. So I didn't really have to change. But at 16, my mom dropped me at my dorm and I'm thinking we're going to hang. She's going to help me unpack. And she like basically turned around and drove back from Florida to DC. And it was like, she like me and told me she loved me and I was on my own.
Yeah.
And at 16 on your own, I was glad that I had the background from being from Southeast DC because there's a lot going on. Like, there's a lot of trauma in DC and a lot of negativity sometimes, but it's a beautiful place and you get a mix of everything. So going to Miami, I was kind of okay with everyone. I've never been to school with like anyone of a different nationality.
Mm.
Or ethnicity at all. Because in DC, all of my schools were predominantly Black. So going there, it was a culture shock for me because there were people from all over the world. There were like people from the islands, there were everybody. So that was the biggest shock for me. And living alone was the biggest shock for me too, because it was like, yeah, I'm on the dorms, but like now I have to shop for myself. But all of that was fine because I had a job since I was like 13. So I kind of grew up early, if that makes sense. Like I helped my mom with bills at certain age, like when I was like 15, 16, because I was working 2 jobs at certain points at those ages. So I always felt like a little bit ahead. But I was going to school now with older people who were like looking at me like a baby. And they're just like, this is our baby. Like, we're going to take her in. And I did get taken in by some people who were very positive, all from Maryland and Philadelphia and New York, like the states kind of clustered together. But having freedom and partying, I wasn't able to party because I was 16. So
Right.
it was a lot of inside chilling. So handling that I had to find the balance between work and school because I did have a moment in school where I almost flunked out
Mm.
because and I can go to the beach at 3 o'clock versus class at 3 o'clock. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Which one would you choose?
every time, so I had to repeat classes and it humbled me because it's like you're in a school now with everyone who's smart.
Mhm.
Everyone was the smartest person in their school pretty much. And if they weren't, they're here still. So we're all pretty much on the same level and you
Yeah.
have to up again. So it kind of humbled me in the sense that I almost failed, but I ended up making it out. My senior year, I came home, I worked during conference planning and I took a semester at PG. And that's
Okay.
how I had to do anything I had to do. But PG, like community college, is still college, and it's still worth
Oh
it.
yeah,
So
of course.
they really helped me.
Yeah. So you've now have graduated from college. At that point, how did you get into the internship for the conferences?
So it's an interesting story because my senior year, I went with a temp agency,
Okay.
and temp agency, they just tried me out at a few different places. They had me doing, things for the Smithsonian, like typing things for the Smithsonian, and they just like tried me around like 2 days at a time in different places. And the conference planning, like I picked it up like that. And the hiring event planner, she was the director of meetings at that time. She looked at my resume and she was like, you do a lot with sports, but it can be related to a lot of
Mm.
things. And she was like, I think that sports, she was a Hampton graduate, and she was one of those Black women who took other women under her wing and taught them the game. And I love that about her because she really mentored me, like, and molded me. So she took me under her wing and she showed me how relatable sports can be. She's like, you set up a game, you set up a room. Like, you set up you do registration, or you have people paying for the games and buying tickets, they're buying registrations. So she like made it relatable for me and made it make sense. And so through that, I was able to like set up large events from like, we would have like 2-person meeting, then we'll have meetings of conferences of almost 10,000 people, like at a busy day. And I would fly to different like cities and plan events in different cities and conferences in different cities. And I fell in love with it, mostly because I got to travel for free. And, I got to talk to hotel people and people who set up rooms and decorators. And like, it put me in a room with a lot of like really brilliant minded people. And it was something that it was like a diverse mix of people. And I was like, oh, I got to bring this back to Southeast.
Yeah.
Like, I know a way to bring this back to Southeast. So I fell in love with it so much that I started my internship there in 2012. I was an intern, I was an assistant, I was a coordinator, I was a consultant, and now I'm an associate at the same company. But I've been leaving and coming back when the opportunity has presented itself. And I'm just blessed enough that they love me enough to allow me to come back every time just to consult or, in a smaller capacity. And now they're like seeing me again and they're like, promoted me again, but now I'm passionate more so in the community realm. Because the event space that I work for is school nutrition. So we feed the kids. We are the people who put the lunch programs together with the USDA. We, during the pandemic, they were worried about feeding. They still had to feed kids lunch and, giving them snacks and stuff. So the cause for me was very close to the Black Panther Party, who offered free meal programs. Like, they were doing it, for their community. And so I was passionate about it, but now I'm trying to move into a different lane with creatives, because I'm seeing how there's a lot of creatives who have brilliant, genius minds, but they don't get the organization piece of it, or they don't want to deal with that piece of it. Hey, I'm in that too when it comes to the flip side. Like, I like the organization, but the creative part, sometimes I get blocks. And then I get emotional about my blocks. Like, I'm blocked up and I try to paint something and then I end up just like burning it because I'm angry. And it's just like, I try to get myself through that blocks, but the organization part comes like I can do sleep. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And I quickly want to go back to you mentioning how profound your connection with your former mentor was, because I've noticed like you kind of have those tendencies where you always want to uplift and like support another Black woman or anyone in general. I've just seen that energy from you where you want, not only are you excelling, but you want others to come up with you. And I feel like that's so important, especially for, Black women. Not to say that we don't do it, but I feel like we're so much more powerful when we unify, rather than us just doing something individually and trying to, excel without bringing people forward with us. So I just noticed, like, I love how, you automatically just kind of got transferred that responsibility without it actually being a conscious thing. Like you unapologetically do it often. So I just wanted to know, like, did that mentor or that experience with your mentor influence your community work, or have you always just been really passionate about supporting what's going on with where you grew up in Southeast?
That's a great question. And I'm glad you pointed that out because I needed to hear that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Before my mentor at the school nutrition, Cheryl, before she mentored me, I actually had another mentor. I always kept a mentor throughout and that's another thing I didn't name. Like, I have to name that because I had a lot of women mentors. So when I was about 13 or so, and DC Summer Youth Employment were giving jobs to people who was 13 and just in some months or something like that. And I applied for a job and I said, I just want to do sports because I was like, at that point, an athlete. And I got linked up with Miss Lee Thompson. Lee Thompson, she used to be the stadium manager for one of the professional stadiums. So I think it was RFK Stadium before it got shut down. And she did a lot with sports. She was an HD Woodson graduate in DC public schools. And she reached back and she grabbed us. She was like, hey, y'all playing sports. Do y'all know how to run a sporting program? So she taught us how to set up games, how to, she took us to like the fields and let us mark fields. And she took us and exposed us to a lot. And basically she made us, once we graduated, because I was with her for 5 years, when every level we would reach back and bring the next level up with us. So we would keep doing that. And subconsciously, I didn't think about that, but that's where I got it from other mentors, like aunties. Like I always hung with the elder, like Phil's mom. Like my mom always had me around Phil's mom. Like we would just always be around. I would always be with someone older and just be quiet sometimes and soaking it up. So she allowed me. Her doing that for me made me want to do it for other people and show people that, you know, you can organize your own events. You know, I can show you the way and then I leave you to do whatever it is that you can do. Or, you know, this is how I did it. If I can drop a gem in anybody, like I feel like that's what I'm here to do. Yeah. Like we're not here to be information hoarders, you know, we're here to transmute that information to the masses. So I've gotten that from them and I've continued to believe in that.
That is so beautiful. And now this kind of ties in also into healing. And I know that, you know, just having that experience and learning that the first time that you tried things or like the first time you left home, what was that feeling like? Were you intimidated? Did you feel like you can handle it? And how does that now navigate the way that you process things whenever you're starting something new?
That's a good question. So leaving home, like it made me feel like, one, I was intimidated from being home because there was a lot of my friends that were getting murdered, and there were a lot of like, and it's DC so small, it's like, you know, the friend who got murdered and you know the story, you know who did it. And it's like, I didn't want to know anything. So when I moved to Florida, it was for a fresh start. But then things happening in Florida as well. It's just, one, I was intimidated being a young Black girl from Southeast and being there with, you know, people from the UK and people from the islands and people who like fought their way to get to America, and they looking at you like your problems ain't, you know, your problems. So that intimidated me too. And, you know, not having the money that my friends had intimidated me. And I was at school with, you know, like Shaq went to my school and like there were people who went to my school that had money. And I was in Miami and I had to work 2 jobs, unlike some of my friends. My friends were, you know, so I was always feeling like I was kind of like an underdog, even with my accomplishments, because I always felt like I had to fight twice as hard. Like I'm a 5'2" athlete. You know what I mean? Like there's athletes are recruited at 6 feet most of the time, but like I've always been an underdog. And so when I went to like the Navy, like when I went to work for the Navy and I was on the ship a lot, I felt like an underdog because I was the only person who wasn't enlisted. I didn't walk the walk, talk the talk. I didn't know these things, but they brought me in to not be enlisted. And those things, like, it was like my greatest weakness was my greatest strength at sometimes. It was like being intimidated fueled my fire sometimes.
Okay.
I always felt an intimidation to the point where it was like, I realized that it was me and me not being confident, you know what I mean, in myself. And so once I realized that, I started to, you know, accept where I fall short, but also use it to fuel my fire and be like, you know what, my being from Southeast and my being no other, like having to grow up a little faster than you guys helped me in this realm. But then I'm learning you guys because now I'm learning to stop being a survival person and start living more. So, like you just get that. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
No, you did. And I like the fact that you kind of expanded on it, because I just kind of felt like it's also important to know like what those experiences are like. Because, you know, sometimes when you tell a story, you know, it often becomes luxurious and people are like, oh man, you know, Keita does 500 different things and she's like, you know, pushing and excelling, but nobody usually sees like the behind the scenes of how people get from point A to point Z. And I think
Exactly.
that sometimes we don't have conversations about, the challenges or the reasons why people have the experiences that they do. So just a question in terms of like healing or transitions, you answered it perfectly for us to kind of delve into like, who Kita is
Yeah.
and why you do the things that you do. So while we're still on the topic of healing, why is self-care such an important thing for you? Especially now that you're starting, a little lady and it's all about healing, it's all about wellness, and it's all about growth. Can you expand a little bit about that?
Sure. In about 2016, I had a really bad depression,
Mm,
and my depression stemmed from my dad passed, and then we had some unsettled things going on. Like my dad and I were kind of distant between, I would say, 6 and 16. We were kind of distant, and then I started a relationship with him, and then he passed in 2006. And
mm,
so in 2006, once he passed, I immediately ran to Jacksonville, Florida, where I started my Navy job. So out there, I was like running, but I was just like not in my body, and I was not dealing with the fact that I was grieving. So once I got out there, I I was just acting out. You ever like find yourself like exploding because you held things in too much? Like that was me out there, and I was just wondering why I was so snappy, and I was giving off this angry Black woman vibe. And it was because I was grieving, I was in a new situation, I was running from so many things, and my brain was just like massively clouded. So I quit out there, came back to DC, and I was just really depressed. I fell into a depression that I call imploding, where I
mm,
hold everything, and I don't like act out angrily. I just implode. Like I'm just in a dark room, just imploding. And so I started working with a life coach, and she went through the Intervisions. So that's Ayanna Van Zant's group. And so she had a different way of counseling, because I had been in counseling before, but it just wasn't working out for me as well as life coach. I transitioned to a life coach. And she said, what are you doing to get out of your depression? Are you actively trying? And so I was like, I mean, no, I'm just sitting here soaking with my tears and
mhm,
falling out of work. And, I'm living this life. So what I started doing is I took a poster board from the dollar store, it's like 50 cents. And I would use a ruler and draw the days on there. And I would be like, all right, all of these days are blank. I didn't try anything these days. I didn't try to get out of my depression these days. So I started marking days that I did stuff. So I was like, all right, today I'm gonna cook for myself. Today I'm gonna clean the house, because
mm,
depression, I wasn't cleaning the house. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna clean the house today. And then when I step back on the month, I'm looking and I'm like, okay, I tried this day, this day, this day, this day. Cause and I'm like, yes, I want to let you know I tried. And I want to let you know I tried all of these days. And then it just became a monthly thing. Every month I would go day to day, and I'd be like, did I try anything to get out of my funk if I'm in a funk? And if I'm not in a funk, what did I do today? Did I socialize with anybody? Did I stop, for lunch? Because some days as an event planner, you don't get a lunch.
mm.
So did I stop for lunch? Did I feed myself a healthy meal today? Or did I just grab some chicken on the way home? And I had to track those things, because those things affected my self-care. It affected me, like just not taking time to feed myself and just picking up anything led me to the hospital with like pancreatitis and appendicitis, because I'm eating fried foods and drinking liquor because work is stressful. So it's like sometimes you have to take a break and say, I have to do something for me. I have 6 calendars for work, but I need something that I can come home to and check in with myself. So that's where the self calendar came from. It came literally from me asking myself, what am I doing for myself today?
Which is very important. And especially, and I hate to just um, say this specifically for Black women, but I want to say it
Go ahead.
specifically as Black women need, to have these things. And I've noticed just as far as transitioning from being, a single woman with,
Mhm.
no children, and then going and transitioning into having a full blown family. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know, I couldn't name it for myself, but just those changes in such a short span of time. And, like I love my family to death, but it's like just not having a moment for self And then,
Mhm.
having that life where I could do what I want and, stay up and paint all night or,
Yes.
go out and not have to think about anyone, just, not having a break and just going directly into, full blown mommy mode and like full blown, you're responsible for two people. It's
Yes.
like that for me, I couldn't name it, but I was like, wow, like I'm depressed because this is new for me, And then just also I don't know if I did, but maybe had some form of PTSD. But I know for a
Mhm.
fact that you know, after giving birth, I had like severe anxiety. I've always had like small trinklets of it, but it
Yeah.
went to full blown. But noticing how I went from, waking up in the morning, like doing my makeup and knowing exactly what I want to wear, or whatever, and then going to like I'm just going to put on, sweatpants and whatever. And like, having challenges, just trying to find time for myself. I kind of
Mhm.
feel like, you know, meeting people like you or just seeing that self-care that others have was, helpful to kind of realize that sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to choose you. Sometimes it's okay to find time for yourself. And, it's okay. It's okay to do those things. And I kind of felt guilty for feeling like it wasn't okay for me to take time for
Yeah.
me. So, just hearing about your calendar or hearing about like the things that you kind of prioritize for yourself and hearing other women's stories. Like sometimes we feel selfish to be selfish, like it's kind of like in society, it's made to believe that women are supposed to be the ones to put others first rather than also taking time for yourself so that you can be the best person for someone else. So, I just feel like having a routine or like having a platform that you are now, bringing into this world, like your calendar or having consultations for people, creative consultations for others is really profound because you don't think about that, but that's what we need to be the best people that we can be for ourselves. So I kind of feel like hearing your story and hearing like your experiences and your background, it's like sometimes we don't realize it, but we're born with a mission. And whether or not we want to accept that or whether or not we're paying attention, it's like everything that you have done has brought you to where you are now. Like it's intentional, but you're not paying attention to the fact that it's been intentional. Like every experience that you've had, your mentors, you graduating early from school, you having so many, aunties and your mom pushing you and having the challenges that you have, like having to accept grief. It's like, do you think you were able to be the person you are now without those experiences? Like everything almost feels like it's coming full circle for you. I wanted to know from you, like, why you think it's so important for you to bring a little lady into like fruition now.
I think I think a little lady is about honoring myself, honestly, because it's basically one, I honor the fact that some days I don't have good days. And
Mhm.
I'm offering self-care calendar for that, for myself as well, because some days I don't feel the greatest. And us naming that is important because with social media, we see all the good parts of everyone. And there's a lot of people who don't admit that I'm having a bad day. And that helps me out because it makes me human. You know what I mean? So it gives me that day to be like, it's like an event planning, conference planning, it's hard to have an off day. That's one of the reasons why I haven't delved into, weddings and stuff like that, because it's like you can't have an off day on somebody's big day. And it's like I've done conferences that's somebody's big day. But long story short, like I've been doing that for so long for so many people who, I kind of forced into having to do it. But now I want to do it for people who probably just don't want to do it for themselves, but deserve it at the same time.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like
yep.
these, I don't even want to call it a small business, but these women who are starting stuff on their own, it's like I'm raising their flag until my flag is raised too. You know what I mean? Because I've always liked to do stuff in the background. like have things done going on in the background and not be in the spotlight. But a little lady is helping me work the background and still have my front with my calendars and be like, hey, this is on your wall. I love seeing it on people's walls. But it is coming full circle for me because it's something that I, sometimes as Black women, we don't feel like we're worthy of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And this business is helping me with feeling worthy and feeling like I can do this on my own.
Right.
But I'd rather
Mm-hmm.
have friends who I can like outsource and make life easier for everyone, and then put them together, and then like we can just all have a community. Like, and that's kind of what I've been working at, like is building a small community around Little Lady and having people, network with each other and use each other for their creative content. So I just want to keep building that, and so that ultimately we do have like a Black list of folks who you can contract to do your stuff. And
Yeah, that's the worst part about no longer having a yellow page. So I like the
yeah,
fact that you're creating like a digital or online platform that will become a yellow page of like, all of the people you need to know that can help you out, and you highly recommend because you've worked with them.
absolutely. And then I
Mm-hmm.
do which is like a small like uh thing of mine that I love doing, but it's something that I go in there and I find those new small businesses or the women who just open like their eyelash place or something like that, and I'll go there and I'll review it on there too. So it's like I just want to keep the good things going, and I want to uplift myself through it too, but I feel like I'm uplifting myself every time I uplift my sister, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that part. So I know that we had a conversation prior to our interview, and there was a list of things that you wanted to talk about. We've spoken about, self-care. We've spoken about kind of the healing portion as well. But dating, can you tell me a little bit about why that's on your list?
Yes, because before I recently got in a relationship in April of 2021. That's what year we're in. I keep 2021. And before that, I was single for 7 years. And during that time of being single, a lot of my friends were like, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing? Like, you're moving around. And that was really it. I just moved around
Mm.
and I've kind of fell in love with myself. And that's kind of what I wanted to list. That's why I put kind of dating on there, because I get a lot of questions about that. Like when you're moving around, like how do you date? And then how do you find people in different cities and things like that? And for the most part, I did a lot of things alone. Like I did a lot of things that I loved. And it was like more so like, all right, I'm in the middle of Newport News, Virginia. Like, what do I do? And so I would go on Yelp and I would find things to do. And I would, or like they have like Facebook groups and Facebook markets and stuff like that now. But I would go on places and I would go to like kickboxing classes, and then there will be guys in there, or like I'll just go to like the nearest Fridays or something, and like everybody's friends at Fridays is like Cheers for Black people. So it
I
was,
remember when there was a Fridays around Georgetown, not Georgetown, but like Foggy Bottom area. And then
yes,
every Wednesday there used to be karaoke. But I can
yes,
totally understand why you would say that.
yes. In Newport News they would have Club Fridays, they would call it, I
Hmm.
guess, Fridays, where they would have they would have a DJ come in there on Friday, and then he would play music and people would be dancing, and it'll be like good. It'll be good. So Fridays, and then there one in like not District Heights. What is that over there by by the school? Suitland. That one kind of gets,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, like when you go in there, it's like I always know someone in there, and it just vibes. So like I would go to places like that. I would go to the gym and like work on myself. But then there will be people in the gym that'll just randomly come up to you and start conversation. So that's one of the things about like dating that helps, is like when you date yourself first, like you start finding the people will attract to you like flies. Like
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I like to leave women with as far as dating, because dating yourself is self-care. Like taking yourself out. Like I used to go get my nails done and my feet done and like everything done, and just go to the movies by myself or something like that. And it's a lot of women who don't like to do stuff by themselves, but that's how you learn yourself, you know,
Yeah.
get into different classes. Like I said, the Facebook groups, I would go on like spiritual pages and then they would say, hey, like the full moon is tonight and this is a list of things you can do. And then I would like do those things because I'm like, hey, let me see what other people are doing. So let me journal tonight, put myself a bath and just do things for you. And eventually, like, of course, when a guy come along, you'll have your moments with them or whatever. But I was never married to the fact of dating someone for a shorter period of time and like not fully seeing who they are. Because
Mm,
I feel like we as women sometimes we date somebody and we're like, you're my person, let's go. And it's like we don't give ourselves that time to like really see like I like myself alone when I'm with him too. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Like because when you're with someone, you still have your alone time and you don't want to spend it chasing them and seeing what they're doing all the time. You want to have your own life too because you're
Yeah.
still too individual. And what I was finding during dating is there was a lot of men who I didn't want to be like myself with them in the same room, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And it's so important. It's very important. And I love the fact that you were like, I was single for 7 years, but not like feeling bad about it because you did so much, you
Yeah.
dated yourself, you went out, you had your nails done and everything. So that's really nice. When you did find your mate, how did you guys meet, first of all?
Oh my
And
God.
what is that like for you now? You've been alone and you dating yourself for such a long time. Like, how do you prioritize yourself? How do you find time for your partner?
So funny story, I met him at a community cleanup that I was doing. I was working with the group Urban Temple and I was organizing cleanups at the Anacostia Park and we would go up to like Minnesota Avenue and we would just clean up the parks. And so he messaged me on Instagram and asked if he could come. And I was like, oh, sure, of course. And like, I had multiple people messaging me that I didn't really know, but I was like, the more hands, let's go. So he came and I put him in a separate group because I didn't really know him like that. I was just like, here, you go. And after the cleanup, he came and found me and he was like, hey, like, you want to go out sometime? I was like, sure. Like, you just helped me clean up the park. And, so on our first date, like, and I don't really suggest this to everyone, but on my first date, we both sat there and just laid all our shit on the table. Like, I'm sorry if that like for cussing, but we both literally sat there for hours and just was like, this is my good parts. This is my bad parts. This part gonna annoy you a little bit. And we were like completely open and honest about it. And I was like, I've never had a date like this. This is interesting. But I don't for everyone, but for me it worked. Like just putting everything out there up front. And so prioritizing dating, like after that, I would still go and do my community work. I would still work on a little lady and he would go and he would do like his comedy shows and things like that. But like we just kind of had this deal that one will always have a date night a week, like at least one. And it doesn't have to be something we have to go out to. It could be something like, all right, like Demon Slayer season came out, like binge watch. Like let's binge watch and have some Bel Air or something like that. So like we'll do stuff like that. And then we also have work dates where we sit together, but we both work on a project separately. And that way we're holding each other accountable for working on things. And then we prioritize our family too. So we spend time with each other's family. And we've only been dating for, I would say like since April. So it's December now. So it's only been a short amount of time, but in that amount of time, we've had a lot of honest conversations because during that 7 years I was single, I was able to set boundaries for men. And now it's a boundary, but it's like a loving boundary. When I set boundaries before in those 7 years, I did it the wrong way, I did it the right way. And the wrong way was setting them like really, really like, you don't have to be hard. Your boundaries don't have to be like, if you don't do this by this time, I'm leaving this and that. It can be, okay, I'm going to allow you to not be in my presence for a day or two or a second or two until I'm ready to talk about it. And I had to learn personally not to talk about things right on the spot because I'm a Cancer, but I'm a Sagittarius rising. So I get pretty like But for some people, talking about it on the spot works. So it's all about talking to your partner and figuring out what works for you guys. And we had to get to an understanding where we wouldn't compare our relationship to others because it was unique and we were building one from the ground up. And once we
Mhm.
found that out, once we had that worked out, it was like, all right, I can work with you. You know what I'm saying? Because you have your mind is right, you know, and it's a lot of separation from the mind from some guys. So you
Yeah,
just gotta.
no. I really love that. I love that because I feel like sometimes, especially like in our community as Black people, um, what we've learned from relationships could be, the fairy tale of what we watch on TV and whatnot, because a lot of us had, interesting family dynamics. I know for myself, my mom was, a single mother for 11 years and then, married my stepfather. But it's like, during that period of time, it's like you don't really see, or you don't grow up into a relationship with two parents. But having, experience of seeing that and then going to another one, it's like you quickly learn that relationships aren't a cookie cutter way, It's
Right.
like there are two individuals. That's another thing. It's like going into your own relationship or like just learning when you have time to be by
Mhm.
yourself, you kind of have to like compromise and communicate if you want something to work. And another interesting thing about people is that we change. So if one thing, was a set way in a different season or time, that person may have matured or grown. So it's like you have to completely date that person over and over again and restart the cycle. So I love that you're coming into that already knowing what you want, because some people don't, and
Yeah.
already having the space for your partner to be vulnerable and not being so judgmental and saying like, you don't want to attack at first, but
Yes.
having that moment to, restart, or if you need a break, have a break. Because a lot of people, assume one thing and are only being selfish and not compromising and hearing the other person's point of view. Because over and over again, I'm sure, you've seen these viral videos like, the other person, it's not about you guys, you know,
Yeah.
arguing or fighting over one thing. It's like you want to solve the problem. And I
Yep.
think that's what a lot of us forget. So that's really, really beautiful that, everything is just aligning for you. And that's, it takes work. It takes getting to know yourself. It takes, prioritizing certain things. So that's really dope.
And it also took me knowing myself and knowing my patterns because
Mhm.
a lot of times, and I don't want to put this on a lot of women and men, but a lot of times we don't own our stuff that is in the way of us getting closer to people. And
Mhm.
for me, in those 7 years, it was the consideration part. Like I grew up. My mom was a single mom. She didn't remarry or anything, and so she figured things out on her own. And my thing was, when I was dating, I had to learn how to let a man kind of help me. You know what I mean? Because I was just so independent. I was just like, nah, I don't need this. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get all the groceries. And it was just like, let guys, be guys and let them be gentle.
Mhm.
And I had to gentle up a little bit because I was so hard. And like I didn't realize how hard I was until, I met someone who had the communication to explain it to me. And I think that's what was missing as well, is that communication piece, because
Mhm.
that's important. Like you guys have to understand, and I'm like that's working out for me now. So I'm
Yeah.
glad.
Yeah. And it's like it's definitely scary because like with anything, with something new or with you just opening up and like stating what's in your mind, it's very intimidating. So it's like the fact that, it takes work to be brave. I think
Mhm.
that as people, we should all like understand that, you make mistakes or it's okay to be scared. But if you're in a state of vulnerability, it's easier for people to understand who you are. So,
Absolutely. And I had like one of the things that I've done in the time when I was grieving is I was sent to anger management,
mhm.
and I didn't know this until I was sent to anger management that passive aggressive is a type of anger. And I would sit there and they were trying to explain to me, like when you not communicating, that leads to you being passive aggressive, and you don't realize how you're coming off because you're not yelling. You know what I mean? But you're still being, a little complicated. So I had to own that, maybe I'm holding too much in, and maybe I need to communicate this way or that way. But like I said, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't judge myself, or I would offer not to judge yourself. Like if you're up yet, because a lot of times what we do as a collective is we measure ourselves to the capacity of someone else, and that's not it. And that causes a lot of anxiety and depression as well, and that's not good for your self-care.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a ticking bomb because you mentioned earlier you used to internalize things. And, it's funny just hearing your story because I'm like, we're very much a little bit alike than I actually knew, prior to us having a conversation. But yeah, like if you don't work on yourself, if you don't, vocalize the things that you need or like vocalize your emotions, that stuff will like build up to the
Yeah,
point where it's like you are gonna, hurt yourself and hurt the people around you. So
yeah,
yeah.
definitely do
Yeah.
that.
So we are at the mark where we have only 10 minutes left. Is there a question that I didn't ask that you would like to share with our listeners?
um, let's see. Um, no, I think you handled it. I think the only other thing I wanted to put is that you are going to be featured in our calendar this year, and I appreciate your
Yeah.
submission. And Phillip is going to be in there too. I did
Yay.
get, so I'm working on that, and I'm so excited that you guys submitted because um, painting was once one of my most comfortable releases.
Mm,
And when I found myself in like a creative block, it was really hard for me to paint myself out of. And when I reached out to you guys and I asked if you guys wanted to be featured in my calendar, it was like helping me with my block, because it's like, okay, I get to get inspired by other people.
yeah.
And I painted solely, not even just like for monetary purposes, because there was so much, like I said, I was holding things in that I had to get out, and I was trying to get it out on a canvas. And so I'm just really excited about this year's calendar, and I'm excited that you're featured in it. I did have also some pictures you took from
Oh.
our work that we've done with Pretty Little Blooms, Flower Walls, and for my birthday, we did that wearable art. And I'm just so excited about, the collaborations we'll have this next year. And I just wanted to name that, for the listeners to collaborate more.
Absolutely.
Don't have to do it all on your own. And that's one of the things that I'm learning this year. For me, my lesson has been capacity. And I've been saying capacity for like a month now, because I've been trying to do things that'll elevate me,
Mm-hmm.
but make sure they're within my capacity. Because rest is just as important as the grind. Because within the rest, that's why I was creatively blocked, because I wasn't getting any rest. I was just showing up and doing things, but we have to learn to do things within our capacity and not to force things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not to force the creative stuff. Just let it roll. So that's something that I've been learning, and I wanted to pass on, because capacity is definitely important. And I've been saying it over and over and over this week.
Yeah, very important. And we are so very honored to be in your calendar. And I think that it's quite funny because when we started to collaborate and you emphasizing that collaboration is so important, I've learned that since we have collaborated, I've done my most artwork. I haven't had so much time to just be creative. And it's like so refreshing for me to work with people that are, very flexible, very open. But just the idea of having people that have other ideas or are more organized with
Yeah.
time management and planning than I do. So, just to be able to show up, do what I love to do, and, other people have duties or other people have ideas that they can collaborate with me on it's fantastic. So, I'm glad I met you. I'm glad that, we'll always be connected. And that's something that I love and would like to emphasize and piggyback on too. Like, collaborate if you're creative, collaborate with your peers, collaborate with strangers. Like, you never know what beauty can come out of it. And so now that we're on the topic of the calendar, we're running out of time. I just wanted to know, when is this calendar coming out so that our listeners can, purchase a few or 10 if they want to?
Sure. The calendar will be out the week after Christmas. So after Christmas, you guys can expect it to come on www.alittlelady.com. And the little is spelled LIL, like we do in our community. So alittlelady.com, they'll be available there, as well as some self-care resources, including the Creative Habits podcast in our rest section. And we have some dope Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses there on our resources page as well. So you can get more resource.
Fantastic. So every time Phil and I conclude an interview, we like to play a game with our listeners called This or That. So the idea of the game is that, we propose two different ideas or opinions or options that you can select from. So for instance, if I say, pancakes or waffles, and you tell me, which one you think and why. So
Okay.
I want to start off the question with asking you, if you were stuck on a ship, which you have, what would be on your playlist? Would you listen to Kanye West or would you listen to Drake?
Kanye West.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Drake is good too, but I would need the versatility that Kanye has. I don't really listen to his church album, but Late Registration, College Dropout, the 808s Heartbreak. Yes, Kanye.
Likewise. And it's quite funny because my brother is 20 or about to be 20. So he heard Kanye when Kanye was going like this.
Yeah.
But for me, like, I remember the College Dropout Kanye, and I will take Kanye all day. So I feel you on that. All right. So another one would be, would you rather be on the beach or on a plane to a different country?
On a plane to a different country. And I will tell you why. I have a list of over 50 places. Like, I've been to like 38 states of the states, but I have a list of all the places I want to travel, and all those places have beaches. So
see, smart. Phil always tells me, work smarter, not harder. So that's a bet. Get on the plane, go to the beach in a different country. So would you rather have a 6-course meal as a date or a meal at home?
Oh man, I would definitely rather have a 6-course meal. Not definitely. I love, my boyfriend can cook, so I think he'll be sad about this, but I'm a Yelper. So I've always had a secret idea of retiring and being like a food critic. I've always wanted to do that, a traveling food critic on the low. So I would rather have a 6-course meal and then have the chef come out and I tell him how I feel about it.
Love it. Love it. Yep. We love good food. So I did want to mention, because you were talking about you having artist block currently. I did want to mention Keita is an artist, and I've seen your paintings, and sometimes I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't tell me that you're an artist. And I've seen your work, and it's like very simplistic, but it's like it's telling a story or has a message in it, and it's very intentional. So yes, Keita has artwork for sale as well on her website. I wanted to mention that. And yeah, she's versatile. She has a myriad of things going on. Very intelligent, an awesome person to chat with. So Keita, I would like to thank you for being on the show today. Please drop your social media. I know you shared your website, but please do all of that again, so that if anybody's interested in following you, purchasing, or wants to connect, book something from your website, please share all of that now.
Sure. It's alittlelady.com, ALILLADY. And then I'm also a little lady _ on Instagram, and a little lady on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm all a little lady. You'll find me there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening to this episode. Please don't forget to subscribe, and of course, support us and hit us up if you'd like to be a part of the show. Have a great day.